Okay, Chelsa, most improved team in the AFC North this season. Who is it going to be?
I think you could make a case for 3 of these teams. I'm not going to put the Bengals out there because they were good last year, even though they did get some help on the offensive line. You can look at the Ravens because I think their offensive weapons are a little bit better. Lamar Jackson, if healthy, will elevate this team just by virtue of being on the field. And then you look at the Browns. What a high ceiling this team has. And if Deshaun Watson is the guy that we saw in Houston, this can certainly be the most improved team in the AFC North. And plus, they finished last in the division last year. If you think they have a chance of competing for the division crown, yeah, they could be the most improved. But you can also make a strong case for the Pittsburgh Steelers being the most improved team here because, again, it hinges on the quarterback. What do we expect from Kenny Pickett this year? I'll say the Steelers were a team that came on hot down the stretch. Finished the year last year, 7-2 in their final 9 games? And a lot of that was because Kenny Pickett was starting to make the throws. So if I had to pick one, I think I would say the Steelers.
Yeah, I would too. And I know it's low-hanging fruit to mention Mike Tomlin and what he's done, but really this is about more than that. And this is about Kenny Pickett improving, as you mentioned. Also, this is going to be a top 10 defense, and that really is the strategy or the way the Steelers can win more than 100 yards more per game, which is absolutely asinine. That's how good he is. So if you have a top 10 defense, you have a quarterback who should take the next step, and they had a great draft as well. We don't need to get into the particulars, but if you look at what the Steelers did across the board, took Broderick Jones, an offensive tackle, in round 1, Joey Porter Jr., whom I love out of Penn State, in round 2. They did a really nice job of filling in the holes that they have on that roster. So I'm with you. I think it's the Steelers. How about the player with the most pressure this season, Chelsa? I think we're both going with quarterbacks, but 2 different quarterbacks.
Right. I'm going with Deshaun Watson because, number one, nobody's rooting for this guy. He's going to have to be incredible for anybody to even give him the time of day. And also, he's getting paid so much damn money. Wasn't this the most guaranteed money ever for a quarterback? For Deshaun Watson, somebody who has the dark cloud of allegations of all this, nonsense hanging over his head. So I think it's Deshaun Watson. And I feel like this team is very much tied to his success. I think you're going to make the case for Lamar Jackson, and obviously he needs to stay on the field. He just signed a huge deal, but I think Lamar Jackson actually deserves his money. I'm not so sure about Deshaun Watson. I feel like this set a precedent in the NFL that all other owners were looking at the Browns and being like, what are you guys doing? Now we have to pay our quarterbacks that? Nice job, Browns. So I think it has to be Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to, and I'm not going to mention this person's name, I was talking to a very, very prominent NFL person, on-air person, and this person told me, we previewed every single team, but not the Browns because of Deshaun Watson. That's how polarizing Deshaun Watson is. That said, I will go with Lamar Jackson just because he wanted that huge contract. He complained about it. He realized, there aren't any takers. And by the way, it's interesting how Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson are connected because once Deshaun Watson signed that ridiculous guaranteed contract, Lamar Jackson wanted to be paid more than Deshaun Watson. And he found out, look, everyone agrees the Browns overpaid here. You're not going to get that money. But he did get his. This is a former MVP. And now that you got your cash, now that you got your long-term deal, it is time for you to perform. I understand he's been banged up. You can only control so much of that, but I feel like the Ravens did a very good job of putting weapons around him, be it OBJ, be it drafting Zay Flowers out of Boston College, already has Mark Andrews. They have Todd Monken, new offensive coordinator. Everything is in place for Lamar Jackson to succeed this season. So after all of the hullabaloo during the offseason with him wanting that contract, it's time for him to go out and perform. I love Roy. I love that Roy is just speaking out all the time and just speaking his mind. I think he's so intelligent and so well thought out. Clearly, and Roy has said, I hate the Live Tour. So I would imagine that has something to do with it. But man, what a shot.
Oh, and a good one, and a factual one. But what do you think the legacy is going to be moving forward for Phil Mickelson? Because what a 180 that we've seen because, like you said earlier, Billy Walters was saying, you're looked at like Arnold Palmer, and now it's the pendulum is swinging towards looking like Pete Rose. But like, that's not necessarily fair because Pete Rose was like continuously gambling on teams that he like managed and teams that he was on. Because it's one thing if, I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying Phil Mickelson was betting on the Ryder Cup to win and the side that he was on. But I don't know what it is about athletes and gambling. Do you think it's some sort of link toward the adrenaline rush? Because remember, wasn't that something that Michael Jordan like allegedly dealt with, was gambling?
I think it's competition. I think it's the challenge. At least for me, and MJ was notorious for this. Phil obviously has been doing this. So I think it has to do with being competitive. It's just another way to compete. And if you're the ultimate competitor, doesn't it feel better when there's more on the line? If you're just doing a best ball match between you and a buddy and another couple guys, isn't it more exciting if there's something you're playing for instead of a friendly match? I feel like if you have a lot of money and you're hyper competitive, you need it.
Yeah, and we see it. And now I'm thinking we need more gifts of Phil Mickelson to replace the Michael Jordan ones. Because in the gambling world, isn't Michael Jordan like the king of like the gambling gifts where he's like, it's not a problem, I can stop it anytime. You know what I'm talking about, right?
There's 1,000%
doing that.
Oh, and the Jordan stories are crazy. There's one story, and I forget what it was, is that he played golf for like 18 holes. And this is before a game that night. I got to look this up. I forget who was telling this story. And he's drinking beer. He plays 18 holes and then makes a bet after the 18 holes. I'm going to drop more than 40 tonight, and goes out and does it. Just absolutely insane. Phil Mickelson. Good Lord, sir.
We have been talking about this Phil Mickelson story about he is probably a degenerate gambler. One of the points in this story or this book that came out was that he once made 45 MLB bets in a single day, which is wild to me. I don't think I've made like more than 5. Do you think you could make 45 baseball bets in a single day?
Man, that is such a crazy number. My mind goes to like, okay, there's 30 teams, 15 games, 3 bets.
3 bets a game.
I mean, if you go, okay, I'm taking, a Nerfy in the first inning. I'm taking a Nerfy. I want to go with, a K prop, and then I'm going to go. I think I could make 45. I've definitely never made 45, but I think I could figure out 45 in a game. I think there's so many little intricacies. But, I mean, I don't think Phil's like such a – I just think I pick on certain games. Like I've made like 5 on one game, but I'm staying away from the Nats Oakland game just because I don't even care what's going on. I don't want to look at the box score and be like, man, did Nick Allen get a hit or not? Like, no, I don't really care.
So when you looked, and you like to bet like we do, do you remember one time where you decided to go all in and you had a huge card? Maybe not 45, but where you had a massive card or you were just a total degenerate one night and you decided to go all in?
My kryptonite is I don't even really call it gambling because I said it before. Like I just look at the numbers and I'm like, I'm gonna win, and the money's just gonna keep going up. And I might not win that night, but I'm gonna continue to bet against the Minnesota Twins striking out. And there might be a night where the Minnesota Twins don't strike out. And there was one night I got a K prop against the Mariners. It was Mariners versus the Twins in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is so easy. I think it was like a 3 and a 4 I needed from, I don't remember the pitchers, but I'm like, the entire season they had hit their K prop all but one game. And I'm like, this is simple. We get to the 3rd inning and I think they have 3 and no, it was 4 and 4, and they both had 3 and 3. I'm like, this is easy. They had 27 pitches and 32 pitches, and the rain started.
Oh no!
And the rain started, and I'm like, no, it's a delay, and it was like an hour and 15-minute delay. Both pitchers out of the game, And not only did I go 4-4, but I started like piling on the K prop. I was like 5-4, 5-5. So I had like 3 different props out there that I knew were going to hit. Like this was guaranteed going to hit. Well, they got 2 1/3 inning, and then the rain came, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so that made me realize you're an idiot. You need to continue to just relax and just play the slow game.